David thought back 6 years ago to that fateful night.
Papa?
Came his daughter's small voice.
Alice, is that you?
Papa, I've had a nightmare. Can I sleep with you and Mother?
Replied Alice.
Of course, darling. What was the nightmare?
There was a rabbit with a waistcoat and a man with a large hat. And then there was a cat with sharp teeth. And then they said bad things to me.
What kind of bad things, sweetie?
They said that if I told you, they would hurt you.
What?
Said her father, now slightly concerned by his daughter's words. David sat up and beckoned for Alice to give him a hug. His frail daughter embraced her father as small tears began to seep from the child's eyes.
Don't worry, Alice. Nothing is going to hurt us. I promise.
The next day, Alice seemed all too distant from her parents and others. All throughout the day, her father could have sworn that he heard, on multiple occasions, Alice talking to herself. Well, almost. To David, it would have seemed normal if not for the fact that, at times, it certainly sounded like Alice was talking to someone else. As he passed his daughter's room, he overheard Alice talking to someone that she had named the Hatter.
Come in, Papa.
Said his daughter happily. David stepped into his daughter's bedroom and saw a small table with 5 cups of freshly brewed, piping hot tea placed upon it. Around the sides, 4 chairs were set up.
How cute.
David thought.
She's having a little tea party.
Join us, Papa.
David went towards the chair next to Alice, but before he could sit down, his daughter's small hand quickly grabbed him by the arm and said sternly,
No, Papa, that is the Hatter's chair.
The who?
The Hatter! He's my friend. He doesn't like when people sit in his seat.
His daughter's tone of voice had now changed to one of utter severity. It almost concerned David. As he took the seat that Alice directed him to next, a thought crept into David's mind. One that he was surprised had not come up sooner.
Sweetheart, who made the tea for you?
The Hatter did,
said his excited daughter. Slightly annoyed, David tried again, this time paying no attention to his daughter's little fantasies.
Alice, did Mother make the tea for you?
Alice giggled.
Silly Papa. Mother has been in the garden all morning. I told you. The Hatter made it.
Snickered his daughter. David, however, was not amused in the slightest. Now, he was no genius, but he was sure that scalding hot pots of tea didn't just appear out of nowhere. And he knew that Alice was far too short to reach the burner, much less use it to make tea even if she could. There was just something not right about the ordeal. David heard Alice whisper something, or at least, he thought it was Alice.
No. Of course it's Alice. Who else could it be?
You're silly, Hatter. Daddy's good. Right, Daddy?
What?
Muttered David, still stuck on the matter of the mysterious tea.
You're good.
Alice repeated.
Of course, sweetie.
He said, still mulling over what was happening. David, defeated on the matter, exited Alice's room, swearing that he could hear a small voice behind him say, Hurry back! Hurry back! But he dismissed it as his daughter's voice and replied,
Okay, Alice.
Once again that small giggle erupted from behind him, as if Alice knew something that he did not.
Daddy, you were so silly. That was the Hatter.
Not turning around, David returned to his study when a thought crept into his mind once more.
Could she be telling the truth? Is it even remotely possible? No, of course not. It's simply her imagination.
About 2 hours later, David looked out the window that led out to the garden and nearly fell out of his seat at what he saw before him. There, in the dead center of the garden next to the large oak tree, was a white rabbit in A waistcoat. David rubbed his eyes, figuring that he must have seen something incorrectly, and upon opening his eyes again, gone was the rabbit, and there was Dinah, Alice's cat. She was standing on the top branch of the large oak. He smiled, having dismissed the previous delusion. He watched in shock as Dinah smiled back. David could now see each one of the cat's now razor-sharp teeth beaming up at him from the tree. David rubbed his eyes again. And now no longer was he in his study, so safe. Upon looking up again, now he could see nothing but a deep black that seemed to be everywhere. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of a clock ticking came. David counted with the ticks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Eight times did the clock tick before the loud striking of the bell came. A sense of dread settled over David's mind. Something was not right. Where was he? What could he do? And where was that damn clock? So many questions fluttered their way through David's mind. And as he stood there, encased by an all-consuming void of light, only then did he see it. He saw two amber orbs emerge from the dark, followed by a glowing white smile of inhumanly sharp fangs. The figure seemed to dance in thin air, switching from bobbing around and staying still, before it stopped mere inches from David and began to speak. Its sinister voice seemed to come from everywhere in the room at once.
Soon, you will know it all. You will hear the voice and answer the call. The call to end it all, and you will watch it fall. Fall, fall. All of it will fall. It must fall.
The ticking got louder and louder before another figure appeared. Only David could barely see this figure, whereas the dancing shadow that had spoken so shortly ago to him had glowing luminescent features. This new figure was only visible by the faint red glow of his dark eyes. From what David could make out, the figure was very tall and lanky. His figures reminded David of that of a rag doll. His face was not illuminated, but as David looked up, he could see a very large, dirty-looking top hat. But it wasn't normal. It was at least as tall as David's arm. And just as the figure looked up to meet David's eyes, a raspy, twisted voice erupted from the dark. While sharing similarities with the previous one, this one was far more cold and sinister. It was more scratchy, more disturbing. In fact, to David, it sounded just like the voice of a madman. A madman with a hat.
Mad Hatter.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock strikes once, twice, and thrice does the bell sound off, and then you are late. Late.
Screamed the figure as the entire space around them began to shake and tremble. David suddenly felt many hands grabbing at him, though he could see none in the dark, as the feeling that he was falling coursed through him. As he fell, he heard the Hatter's voice call down after him.
Soon, sooner than noon. Then you will see, and then you will be free. Free from the chains of humanity. Down, 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 into a land so fun and grand, with people that are never ever sad. Because down here, instead, we are all mad.
Said the figure as it laughed like a clown who was put on laughing gas while smoking a factory of cigarettes. It was just that, a twisted clown, but no. No, clowns were bright and happy. And then it clicked in his mind the connection to these figures and the ones that Alice had described to him just the night previous when she had woken him from his slumber. She told him of a hatter, one who spoke awfully, and of a cat with razors for teeth. Things were making so much sense all of a sudden, yet at that same moment, they seemed more confusing than ever.
Late, late, late.
Late?
Said his wife, who had only now decided to make her presence known to her husband.
What?
Said David, still piecing the puzzle of where he had been together in his mind. When formed, it did nothing much to his expectations. Such things were simply mad to think of. Mad. Like the Hatter. He had been mad. But not angry mad, just...
Off his head?
Whispered a small voice.
Who's there?
David said, turning his head only to meet his wife's gaze.
Of course. She was the one that woke me up. Or carried me up, perhaps? Yes, indeed, that must be it. I was falling.
It's only me, my dear, but I'm just saying the new gardener was late again this morning. I swear, he's off with his head. A mess, a simpleton. Honest to God, I don't know why I hired this damn fool. Well, first thing tomorrow, he'll be off to ruin somebody else's schedule. My roses have a very tight and precious watering cycle. And thanks to that damn fool, his negligence might cost me the most precious of all my flowers.
His wife was fuming over the late arrival of the hired hand over the previous 2 weeks, and it apparently had cost the man his job this time. All it cost David was the annoying rant that his wife kept going on about. David could honestly care nothing for the flowers at the moment. No. At that moment, the only thing that mattered to David was figuring out what on earth had happened to him for the past 20 unaccountable minutes of time. And as he sat there, desperately attempting to form a reasonable explanation to put to the entire ordeal, he found that his memories of the strange episode became fewer. He could no longer remember any of it except for the tall figure with the hat and what he was saying. What did he mean by the call to end it all? For that matter, what on earth was he going on about altogether? To David, as he himself would someday say,
They are the mad ramblings of a deranged lunatic.
but we'll get to all of that eventually.